Welcome to the Natural Consequences Podcast. This is a Trust Cultr Podcast launched to have conversations about the natural consequences of living a passion-filled life. There are consequences, whether they're good or bad, that we often ignore as we choose to live or not live a passionate life. For me, I've always been the one that's been told you're too passionate, you have too many big ideas. And that led me to want to start this podcast to talk to other entrepreneurs, professional athletes, top chefs around the world, and people who live epic lives. Why their life became epic, how, and this conversation about the natural consequences of what that means. My name is April Kensington, and I am the founder of Trust Cultr, and this is built to build a culture of people who trust themselves, who become leaders, entrepreneurs, they become thought provokers, poets, writers, but it's all about building a culture of trust. Today, I want to start this conversation and launch this podcast with a little bit about me. I'm an entrepreneur, and I started my first business in 2015 out of just pure, fiery, passionate desire to serve other women, other mothers, who wanted natural, clean beauty. And at the time, it was hard to find in one place. So I built a website, I took photos of my own, and then I decided, hey, I like mailing these products, but I want to interface with people. So I took the big leap with a 5-year-old child in tow and opened a retail store. I threw myself into the designing and the outlay of this store and how it would be shoppable, the experience for the customers. I felt this deep drive and passion, not just to find the perfect products that were clean and natural and non-toxic, but to also serve in a way that women felt seen and heard. Now, this was an endeavor as a mother and someone who wants things to be, we'll say perfect, but I want to say close to perfect. And what that did in the process. So opening this store was a massive undertaking that I was so excited to do. It was like the energy, as almost every entrepreneur feels, gets sucked in and you're just constantly outputting and you're so excited. However, there were days where I was falling flat on my face and felt like I could not be peeled up because every single ounce of my brain cells and my energy had been laid out into this project, my daughter, my family, and taking care of myself was often last. So what that looked like was maybe I would get up a little bit early, do some yoga, say that I did a good job, try to eat healthy, drink a lot of water throughout the day, try to have calming tea or breath moments in the midst of serving customers and ordering inventory and making sure that my daughter was getting homeschooled and checking in with staff, and then running around all over the place. And eventually it did lead to burnout. The store was successful, and I moved and expanded into a larger space that became even more successful, including shipping and having more staff, adding more products, and then eventually I decided to make my own brand. In the midst of it all, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't find certain face wash that would make my skin feel soft and clean at the same time without stripping it dry. And I also couldn't find a serum that I loved to pieces, even though I was curating these top clean beauty brands. So I started my own called Hidden Forest Naturals. And through that, I started shipping and manufacturing my own skincare. And of course, it couldn't just be basic and in some, simple packaging. I wanted it to be elegant and elevated, and so I poured myself into that as well. Now here's the problem. I was doing almost all of this entirely by myself. I didn't have a big staff. I didn't have a marketing firm. I didn't have a bunch of people helping me design the labels. I did hire a friend who did a fantastic and amazing job at elevating me as a person and helping me see the vision of my brand, instead of me just continually trying to figure out what it should look like. I will forever be grateful to her for showing me that process of what it looks like to build a beautiful brand with the colors and fonts and all of the things. And I learned so much from her in that process too. My brand, Hidden Forest Naturals, took off, and during COVID, it became the predominant source of revenue. And then I had to make a choice. Do I keep a retail store open during a time where everything was shut down, or do I focus on a brand that was growing fast and being ordered from stores all over the world? The tough decision came where I shifted to just the brand Hidden Forest Naturals. And while I recognized and felt regret, I was probably letting many of my customers down that relied upon me to find the clean beauty brands that they loved. I really needed to focus on this moment that it was just my brand, and building that in a way that felt clear and authentic. And I poured every ounce of passion into that next. I thought at that moment, I finally figured it out. I'll be less crazy and hectic. There'll be less chaos, and I'll be focused on these few SKUs instead of this entire store with hundreds of them. And I'll be able to settle into this life where I can be focused on my family and myself and my needs. However, as things are successful, of course there comes, you need more time and energy and staff, and you get spread thin again. And if you've been an entrepreneur or you've started a small business, you see this happen time and time again. We often struggle and grapple with feeling guilty that we're not showing up to our family enough or our friends. We get resentful that we're not getting enough time for ourselves or maybe even just our hobbies. And yet we continue to go on this passionate journey where we want to serve and we want to expand and grow this amazing endeavor, but we get stuck in the doing it all. And for me, that's where I got stuck. I wanted to be Superwoman. I wanted to be able to grow this brand and be the perfect mom and be the perfect partner and have a perfect house and show up with the best smile. And so a lot of people on social media at the time, if I was going to be really honest and really authentic, saw this beautiful, happy, smiling woman putting on a smile and a face that wasn't always genuine. Behind it was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of fears, a lot of frustrations. The reality was it was led with passion, but it broke me and that I couldn't feel like I was ever doing enough. And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs, startups, and business owners run into this feeling that burnout comes from just never being able to do enough. I've seen this over and over in high-performing people, and for me, this was the biggest thing that I faced. So as I stood there, I had just I had redone the packaging for a product that needed to be shipped, and it needed to be able to be stacked in a box a certain way and not jostled around and make it to these stores around the world. And I'd had some failures with that, with previous packaging. And I was so excited. I finally solved the problem again. And I was holding this product and I was thinking, this is so beautiful. I am so proud of this. But this isn't it. I kept thinking through all the newsletters, all the moments that somebody would be using this product and thinking, what a luxury and how amazing. But I didn't feel like I could tell a bigger story or serve my customer in a way that their life would change. They could have a moment of change or a moment of luxury, but it wasn't life-changing for them. So I stopped. It was like almost a cold stop. It seemed crazy. But I realized that I had something deeper to share. I had to take a step back though, and many of us do. I had already jumped from one thing to the next. From 2015 to 2023, I had really pushed on between starting a retail store and moving an entire brand to a manufacturing facility and growing it and watching it just go all over the place and feeling so proud of it. But I really hadn't stopped to take a break. And if I'm going to be completely clear, I had two moments where I think I literally took 24 to 48 hours to reset. So I moved one store location and opened another one within 24 hours. I didn't want to be closed. I didn't want to disappoint my customers. So I stayed up all night and I pushed myself to make sure that store opened and it looked beautiful and it was ready for people to walk in and buy. Did I need to actually put that much pressure on myself? Could I have given myself more space or come up with a different plan? Probably yes. But I was stuck in overperforming and overgiving mode. So I had to come up with a better plan. Then I shifted when I decided to focus entirely on my brand, and I pulled out all of these fixtures and materials and product and spent weeks closing down this retail store. But when it was time to take the brand itself and move the manufacturing, because I had this wonderful space in the back of the store that allowed for me to manufacture right there, and it was awesome. I had to move it. And I think I took maybe 48 hours to do that. And I pushed myself again. I had to keep going. I could not let anyone down. I didn't want orders to be late, and I just pushed through. I would stay up till 2, 3 in the morning, making sure that things were boxed, packaged perfectly, ready to go, the invoice in the package, and I just kept going. And of course, as anyone hearing my story knows, this is not sustainable. It never is. You cannot continue on a path where you're not sleeping, you're not taking care of yourself. You're probably not even taking an appropriate breath in each moment. You might have noticed that if you are one of those high performers who thrives on anxiety and cortisol, it genuinely makes you feel exhausted very quickly. So when I look back on those moments, I feel a great deal of pride, but then I also feel sad because I have to think about what made me believe I had to do it all. What made me believe that I had to take on the world, push myself through physical pain, mental frustration, fatigue, and not stop long enough to really take it in and revisit, how do I want to run this in a way that I'm not burned out? So when I stopped manufacturing and shipping Hidden Forest Naturals products, I took a couple years, and I took that time to really examine, how am I going to do any business endeavor? How am I going to help other people who want to do a business endeavor or be a high-performing, high-level athlete, surgeon, CEO, CMO, anything that requires you to be on point and working hard, but not burning yourself out? How do I serve that demographic? During my own journey of having mentorships and different people that I was learning from, the 2 words that came to me were self-trust. Self-trust. It kept recycling itself in me over and over again. And it didn't come to me because I just made it up, like this is the idea, this is the new trending topic. It came to me because I thought about, what did I utilize in that time, in both of those times in my life, or other times that I'll share later on, that truly built these businesses, that took these ideas and passionately allowed me to follow and curate and create these amazing businesses. And it was self-trust. One of my favorite stories is at 19, I decided to study abroad and live in London and travel Europe. I had never been. I just went. I had a couple friends, but most of the time I traveled places alone because I wanted to just wander. I wanted to experience, and I trusted myself that wherever I went, I would be okay. And I was. Anywhere I landed or before I landed, somehow I'd always made a good friend, and that a friend that was a local to that place. And I was always taken good care of. I met the best people. And of course, they took me to their favorite local places where I got to eat the best food and have the experiences that only a local person would. And it was like the highlight of my life so far. That was one of the first moments I can pinpoint as trusting myself and following my passion for discovering, for wondering, for being curious, and wanting to learn from other people. So I followed that with full integrity and passion. And thankfully it worked out. And then when I decided to open my first retail store, following that same formula of those 2 words, self-trust, it was so deeply important to me. But of course, that muscle had not been fully developed clearly, because there were so many moments where I was doubting myself. I was looking at other people's systems saying, maybe I should do it this way, instead of completely trusting that my business model and the way I wanted to run my business was the best way. And a lot of us do that. We start with a passion, and then we look around and we hear other people's judgments, or we decide like, maybe it's not good enough. And we look over our shoulder wondering like, maybe somebody else could make it better. Maybe I should ask somebody else's opinion. But some of my favorite entrepreneurs and business owners and billionaires always say the same thing. Don't talk to anyone about what you're doing. Just do it. Just follow that passion, that desire, that thing you're doing. Don't look back. Don't look side to side. Just go. Follow it. But there are the natural consequences that come from that. There's going to be a lot of judgments. There's going to be a lot of naysayers and people that say, you're crazy. Why would you do that? Look what you're doing. You're not even there for your daughter anymore. Maybe you should focus on her. What does that mean for your family? Why do you want to have this store anyway? It seems stressful. But the good news is I also had thousands and thousands of people who would walk in and buy something, and even just the space alone, they would say, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this, for being here, for taking the risk. Thank you for how you shared these products with me. I felt so seen and heard. And part of that came from my own experience of seeing so many women sort of, I hate to say it, but victimized by being sold to by people who kind of predatory would be like, oh, look at your wrinkles under your eyes. And wouldn't you feel better if you bought this $300 eye cream? And didn't make them feel human. It made them feel bad about themselves. And it was almost like fear selling. And I didn't want that. I wanted my customers to feel like they were valued for exactly who they were. That they didn't have to fit a formula of the perfect woman or have the perfect skin, that they would feel that the skin they have is perfect for them. And that the makeup that they wore was the perfect look for them. It didn't have to be a fall look or a summer look or the newest trend. It's just what made them feel elegant and comfortable in their skin. Some of the natural consequences that came with me following a passion and a desire was judgments from my own family members. Thankfully, not many friends. And the other natural consequences were, of course, when I wasn't fully embodied and trusting myself and my judgment and my excitement and what I felt like would be best for my business, I would doubt. And I would feel regret or resentment because I wasn't fully listening to, this is what I think is best. And sometimes it would lead to confusion for people, maybe my staff or customer, because I would falter. And we do that in businesses and anything we do. Sometimes we falter when we're trying to make it the best decision. And what makes us falter is when we're going, maybe I need to do it this way because this business owner or this mentor did it that way, and that's probably best. Instead of, again, aligning with your inner wisdom, because we all have it. And now, in this new endeavor of Trust Cultr and building this culture of people who trust themselves, from entrepreneurs to, Olympic athletes, where they can fully trust that they are capable, that they know what's necessary, and following that line of integrity all the way through, and with the purpose of fulfilling their specific purpose in life and serving others through that purpose with high integrity and valuing the whole thing with a lot of gratitude. That's the recipe of Trust Cultr. I love adding in the sprinkles of spice and a little bit of silliness that a lot of times we live in self-doubt, low confidence, frustration. But this is my moment where I'm stepping into the desire to live a passionate, epic life, showing other people how to trust themselves fully, how to walk away from those old wiring loops that tell us, you're not good enough. You can never do enough. You can never figure out how to make everyone happy, so maybe you should just quit. That can become crushing. And I love working with people who can look at and bury and burn all those old stories and walk out fully self-led, being able to lead with curiosity, being able to show up aligned with, it's not mine to fix. Realizing that life isn't about fixing other people's problems all the time. Starting a business might fix someone's problem, but it's not your job to fix everyone's problems. It's something we get caught up in if we want to be someone who serves others with our purpose in life, but then we forget that there's us, our one life to live, and our desires, and how sacred and sweet and good they are to fulfill, because our one life is only going to be lived by us as the individual. No one else gets to live it for us, and nobody can live it for us. So nobody can dictate or tell you how to live your life, especially if you're living from passion. And if you're one of those people who has been told, you're too much, you're crazy, you're insane, why do you want to do that? Fill in the blanks of the too muches and the crazies and the different words that don't sound that great and often are very negative and harmful. This is the podcast for you. Because living out the natural consequences of having a passionate life are often the best natural consequences. Meeting like-minded people, having moments, aha moments where you have epic friendships and epic adventures. From someone who decides to climb the tallest mountain just so they can snowboard down it, to someone who decides this one product will change so much for millions, if not billions of people. And it happens again and again and again when this one person has this idea and brings in other people and builds it and grows it into something awesome. I can't wait to continue serving you with Natural Consequences, the Trust Cultr Podcast, and inviting you to meet our first guest. But for now, be sure to subscribe to the channel, follow along on this journey, and join Trust Cultr. I'm April Kensington, and this is the Natural Consequences Podcast.